Welcome to the Stoa. The Stoa is a digital campfire where we cohere and dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of what's happening now. Word. Woo. Okay. So let's do some check-ins. I'm feeling excited, a tad apprehensive, because Bonnitta just mentioned something about the session. But yeah, excited, like a giddy excitement. So welcome to the Stoa. I am Peter Limberg, the steward of the Stoa. And the Stoa is a place for us to cohere and dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of this moment. And so I'm inviting all these interesting people to come in and then test and experiment with different kind of psychotechnologies. And so Bonnitta and I were going to workshop something, think about a session to do at the Stoa. And we didn't have time to kind of meet. So he said, let's just do this psychotechnology playground. I'm like, okay, cool. So we threw something in the calendar, and then we were supposed to meet, 15 minutes before just to kind of run over it. But Bonnitta was in a different Zoom room, and my computer wasn't working. So it's like we just met each other like 2 minutes ago before we started letting people in. So I have no idea what's going to happen, and I kind of like it that way. So that being said, I will hand it over to Bonnitta.
All of a sudden watching the screen populate, a phrase came to my mind. We are making history. A bird said in my head, we are making history. And then I thought, it's not like just another page, right? It's just, these are all brand new chapters here in this book. Yeah. So we're going to do some untested, a couple of tested things, but we're going to start with something untested in the virtual world. And that is what's making Peter nervous. So we want to all, when I say so, we're going to all unmute ourselves, and we're going to sing our name into the space. And we'll do that 3 times. Then we'll mute ourselves. Will be a second round. We'll mute ourselves, and there'll be a final round, okay? Very easy. All right, so is that for me? No,
So everyone has the option to unmute themselves. So please do so.
Yeah, so unmute yourselves, and on the count of 3, you're going to sing your name into the space.
Oh, God.
1, 2, 3.
Peter Limberg. Peter Limberg.
That's a good start. So on the second try. 1, 2, 3.
Peter Limberg.
Oh, now hold the last note as I go like this, and it fades out, okay? This is hard for Stoics. You don't have a sense of humor.
Very hard.
Yeah. One last time, hold the note as I spiel it out, okay? 1, 2, 3.
Peter
So that's a pulse that will go out past the solar system and past, SETI. It's going out faster than SETI and will be heard. For the second round, you're going to sing where you're from. So city and state. And then hold the note, and we'll do that 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Winstead, Connecticut. Winstead, Connecticut. One last time. 1, 2, 3. Winstead, Connecticut. Okay. This is just the warm up now. We're just going to sing our name and where we're from, and we'll just one time and just stretch that out, that last note. 1, 2, 3.
Peter Limburg from Toronto, Ontario.
Okay, thank you very much. You can mute now. Okay, so we're going to start with a Taoist koan. So you know the Taoists don't have koans, but this is a Taoist koan. And a Taoist koan is something you don't try to solve with your mind, you try to solve with your body. That's what makes it a Taoist koan. So we're going to do this as another brief warm-up exercise, and then we'll get to the real psychotechnology. So these are just kind of getting us into the main meal. I've been burping a lot on the internet, so let me just mute myself. Okay, so if you can stand up, if you can't stand up because you're attached to this equipment, then sit down, but put your feet firmly on the ground and kind of stomp so your body knows my feet are on the ground. So some of you are dancing, that's cool, but we're going to end up, you can move your body, but you want your feet to feel on the ground, really kind of heavy. They are on the ground, right? So just feel the earth is holding up your feet are on the ground. Okay, so everybody's got that sensation that your feet are on the ground. Now I'm going to ask you 2 questions. The first question is, where are your feet? Okay, so we can, someone can answer?
On the ground.
On the ground. Good job. Okay, second question. Where is your head?
In the sky.
On my neck.
In the clouds.
So that's the koan. Does anybody have another? What are the other answers?
On the ground.
On the ground. Very good. Okay, that was our warm-up. Did you get a chance to ask people to bring like scrap paper or sticky or
Yeah, I
pen?
mentioned it in the email.
Yeah, it's not necessary for this this exercise, but it creates more of an embodied experience. I think at least one of you have done this with me before. Maybe not, can't remember. Okay. So what I want you to do is observe something in your mind. Observe something you know. Think of something you know. Could be a big thing, could be a little thing, just something you know. And write it down, or write down a little word that refers to that knowing. Peter, I'm going to rely on you to paste this, okay? So you can just kind of get a sense of when I should move on. Thank you. Okay, now on that piece of paper, I want you to crumple that piece of paper up and throw it away. There you go. There's one out of a billion. So we're going to purge these things. So now write down the first thing that comes in your mind that you know, write it down on a piece of paper. Crumple that paper up and throw it away. Feels good, doesn't it? One more time, something that you know, something that pops in your head that you know. You can hold on to it a little time. Investigate your relationship with this knowledge. Feel the weight of it. And then just throw it away. There it goes. Awesome. You guys are really good at this. Okay, now I want you to think of something you're afraid of, one of your fears. Write it down. Could be a big thing, could be a little thing. Doesn't matter. I want you to massage that fear. Spend a little time with it. Feel its texture. Then crumple it up and throw it away. I want you to think of something else you fear. Write it down. Could be a big thing, could be a little thing. And hold that fear in your hands and send it love. All the love you have. So much love it becomes sacred. And then crumple it up and just throw it away. One last fear. Something that's got you by the balls. Write that one down. It tried to get away. This one you're going to face and give it respect. And then crumple it up and throw it away. This last one is more difficult. I want you to write something, some question you have. And this one I want you to tear into a million tiny little pieces. And let them fall like raindrops into the sea. Another question. One that you're working on just before you came here, maybe. One you don't want to give up. One that's writing your book. And tear it into little pieces. And scatter it like ashes of the deceased. Now I want you to write one final question. I want you to write, who am I? And I want you to rip that into a million pieces and throw it like dust into the wind. The final liberation. The quest to know who you are. The unsolvable mystery of it. So before we go on, do we have the capacity for reflections? I mean, it's a great big group.
I think so. Would you like people to go off mute?
Yeah. So if we want 4 or 5 minutes of reflection, if everyone's silent, we'll just move on. That was the first part of it.
This is beautiful and weird and beautifully weird. It reminds me of a sort of spoken word poem by a woman named Tea Fairy, To Those Who Weren't as Lucky, and it involves little bits of paper as a anchor or focus of that, and I'll post a link in the chat.
I'm curious about what's left after I've thrown out all of my fears and my deepest questions. There's an emptiness left that's not exactly empty. There's something left of me here.
Okay, so now we can move on because that's exactly the second part. We want to examine our experience. And we will know we know certain aspects of our experience. So we're not that interested in reporting about body sensations or perceptions, sounds, taste, touch, any body sensations. We're interested in what's appearing in your mind, let's say. And so as you watch what comes into your mind, there will be knowings, there will be fears, and there will be questions. And just as Donna said, this exercise is spend some time to make sure there's not something other than those three that's in your experience. We're looking for something that's not a knowing, not a fear, not a question, that's in that space, that room of your experience. So we're going to spend 10 minutes. We'll ask if there's more questions or clarification around the instruction. And if so, then we'll clarify a little, and then we will share. And as we go along, if I intuit something, I might give a little more instruction. But we're looking not for body sensations or perception. We're looking in the room of our experience, something that's not a question, a knowing, or a fear. And as those arise, you can virtually, throw them out. Use that kind of feeling of what we were doing. And we'll want to know what else is arising in your experience.
Do you want us to speak about those, Bonnie?
Oh, not yet. If you have a question, put it in the chat. So I'm not sure this was a question about the actual experience, but someone wrote, I'm having resistance. Resistance is a bodily sensation. So we're still looking for something different than that. These are all good noticings. Yes, resistance is in your experience that comes from your body, contraction, neurochemicals. So I'll check the chat if people are, yeah. Yes. Yes, Dan, and not a perception like a sound or a smell. Yes, Sharon. So hold on to that and just investigate that, the quality of that a little better, a little more. I'm watching the chat. Yes, Natalia, hold on to that. So joy is a bodily sensation as I'm describing it here. So continue to look for something else in your experience. Ah, Annie, you're onto something. It's a metaphor. Things like kinship is also a bodily sensation. It's an affect. Frustration also. That's good. Good noticing. Where we're looking is in the same place where the knowings, the fear, and the questions come. We're looking in that space of experience. Yeah, so Raya, we're gonna ask you to unpack that, your answer, if you just remember at some point. Also yours, Peter. Wondering is a state of questioning. So Sarah, we're gonna ask you to unpack that. It's a loaded word. We got 5 more minutes. Just keep looking to see if you are missing something that's so obvious it's hidden in plain sight. Something in your experience. As you keep looking, oh, there's a thought. No, and there's this, and there's the heart feeling. That's from my body sensation. What else? What else is in your experience? Yeah, the sadness is in your body sensation in this exercise. Okay, Ben A, I'm going to ask you some questions first.
Should I unmute myself?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just share what you wrote. So you said, what did you say?
I said I can't find anything that seems like it would fit the criteria. Emphasis on thing.
Yeah. So what do you mean by you can't find? Just talk around that.
Well, it seems like the categories are comprehensively exhaustive of what arises in experience, and it's
Mm-hmm.
in that moment I see, okay, that's a knowing, and there's a fluctuating sense of credence in that, and that's a sensation, and then I question that, and that's a question,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then seems like there's no way to things seem to loop back on themselves, and
What's happening right now?
It's a bit like I'm looking for something that's just on my periphery, and
Ah, you're looking for something. Is that a knowing?
I think so.
No, well, you said I'm looking for something. The experience of looking, is that a knowing?
Or maybe a questioning.
Is it a question? It's a
Um,
looking for.
yes, but I just analytically, it seems like that could be subsumed under the categories given, unless I'm.
Yeah, analytically you could you could recur on it. But when you're just authentically looking in that moment, is that one of those categories in your experience?
I think it could be, depending on how you construe those categories and that looking.
Yeah. But when you're looking, is the looking a category in your experience? I'm not asking you a question. I'm asking, in the moment that you're looking, you can then turn it into a category in your experience. So Sharon, what do you want to elaborate on that as you're carrying this forward?
Just as you were working through it with Ben, I realized that the process of looking was like an activity in my mind, and metaphorically it's an expression like if I was looking for my car keys, I'd be turning over cushions and then no, it's not that, and it's not this, and I can't use that one, and that won't start the car. And so there's this process of what I'm doing in my mind. So that just came up as you were talking to Ben and focusing on looking. But that isn't a knowing, and it isn't necessarily a sensation unless I try to speak about it metaphorically. Then it becomes a body sensation.
Yeah, so that's a good way to get out of the infinite recursivity of the question. If I'm looking for car keys, the looking is, and I find a pillow or a book or this. The looking is neither a pillow or a book or the car keys. It's not those categories. It is just the process that's that the experience is.
It's a verb.
It's a verb, right?
Yeah.
So anybody else want to language that in the way they're understanding it? It's a gerund. Yes. That's we use it as it's a verb that we use in the sentence as if it were a noun, the looking. But in experience, in the process of it verbing, it's not a noun. Then we capture it as a noun. Yeah, someone got an A in English in high school.
Yeah, Bonita, what I was experiencing is feeling into the sensation of knowingness, and then feeling into the sensation of unknowingness, and then having this desire of wanting to know, which almost has a controlling element to it. And then when you were talking to Ben, the lookingness is very close to the listeningness that I was mentioning previously.
Yeah, when you put that, I found it to be similar. to looking or listening. The listening is the process by which, yeah.
It seems there is another level to listening because you're receiving something as well, more than just sort of, I guess, more information. Doesn't feel quite right, but something there.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to get at, and then we're going to have the last, we got to build on this. This is just to get, so we're talking about the same thing that we're going to want to examine. So we build these, they get deeper and deeper, they get more subtle and subtle. So what I want to highlight is if you had the experience of listening, so listening for what was in your experience that was none of those, or attending to something in your experience, or looking for that you actually were not this, not that, not this, not that. So if we could get agreement that at least that's what the exercise entailed, that activity, that gerundness, that I'm just going to call movement. Even listening is kind of like moving into the space, right? So some kind of process or gerund-like verb, or I'm just going to call it movement. There's a certain movement quality. And the question, what I want us to do now is to examine that. It's a second level of metacognition, or a third. And one way you can do that is you could put two thoughts in your head. And notice what moves as you think one and then the other, or one and then the other. Or we want to get a handle on the movement that is discerning what's in your experience. So you first experience that there's a moving around, or moving from attending to this to attending to that. And then try to examine that movement itself. We'll go right to 10. Oops. Yeah. We'll go. Hello. Yeah, Stephanie, that's a great noticing. You can really work with that because it gives you a contrast. Um, yeah, Sharon, it's not unusual that it goes away because you've exhausted the neural net you're using. It's like when you uh, exhaust your after image or something like that. Um, so you can just relax. Or we got just 4 more minutes. Okay, Peter, if you think we're ready, we could have some shares or questions. Um,
Sounds good.
someone talked about focusing and blurring. Yeah, there's the movement can get to like an expansion contraction kind of. So if we want to share or continue working, it's up to you. What this is quite an advanced meditation. Um, it's been resolved in different ways in the traditions. But I think the interpretation's up for grabs in our modern world. So if you read someone like Evan Thompson, he has quite a modern re-examination of some of this. Or Dan Brown's book on metacognition. These are competing modern interpretations. if you got a room full of, if you populated the stoa with meditators from different traditions, you'd have a what will were called a first tier food fight over the interpretation of this experience. Of course, they go into the experience much more, much more power of concentration and discernment. They can hold distinctions between the cognition and the metacognition with much more effectiveness. So we need to respect what they have to say.
Sounds like a second tier food fight. Makes for a good psychotechnology.
It's also a good way, you know, it's in the opposite direction of transcendental meditation, which is to relax your mind into a calm state. And this is we exhaust our neural net, so we can't think of anything for the next half hour or so. So it's kind of in the other direction.
May I add something?
Oh, please.
I guess my perception of whatever was going on is that I kept trying to look at my perception, keep framing it, and like you said, it was hard to hold it and differentiate. But then I'm also looking at my differentiation, this deeply human need to find patterns, explain it. But even that explaining was coming from different levels of that differentiation. So it was muddy, it was messy, it wasn't clear. But yeah, like that discernment that you spoke of, it seems like it's it needs practice. Like it's not gonna just come now.
Yeah.
I could see that it's yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it just reminded me, your reflection reminded, I got a new metaphor, may or may not be helpful, but it reminded me of like, you're trying to study something very, very small and powerful like the photon, but your instrument scatters the photon. And then you know, and you're constantly, just before you can hold that. Yes, and I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but that's the image I got. The instrument itself has to be subtle, or else it's too coarse, and it scatters what you're looking for. And that feeling of infinite recursion is a scattering. It's actually, you've created layers of complexity, and now you've got to start over again. It's like a little bit of a cat and mouse game, but every time the cat swipes the mouse, there's 5 more mice. Yeah. Yeah, so that's, you know, these are not fancy words, but it's beautiful because that is the nature of what you were experiencing, and that is the metacognitive muscle. And if you were in a traditional Dharma society, I would have responded with a lot of big words and mythological kind of explanations, and you wouldn't quite actually know where you were at. it's a great business model, because then you have to spend like 15, 20 years to learn the language and make those distinctions. But yeah.
Bonita, in staying with that, the movement that you asked us to stay with, the not from thing to thing, but the movement in between.
Mhm.
So it feels the experiences of being in the in between of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the movement that's just the state of flux, not any one thing, but the actual movement. Like I
Mm-hmm.
like that there's something about that I like, and it's like yeah, like I want to stay in the movement.
Mm-hmm. So was that Stephanie? I have this chat in front of your face.
It was Donna.
Oh, Donna. Yeah. So then the esoteric question there is, yeah, so I really appreciate what you say. And that speaks to me. I'm a process philosopher. When everything boils down to movement, I'm a Taoist, you know, in Taoism, if an immovable object meets an unstoppable force, it's very clear that the object moves, right? But some of the traditions have an interpretation where you're the stillness and the or the space of awareness through which things move. I find that as a very, very subtle scatter, right? So you're creating an object, like we talked about, Yoshio was talking about, then more things happen. And I tend to think that that interpretation creates a structural level that is constructed, it's very subtly constructed, that you don't need the space of awareness in which things move. So these are very, very sophisticated, hair-splitting conversations that the Buddhist scholastics enter into.
Thank you.
Cool. We probably should wrap up soon. Before I make some closing announcements, Bonita, do you have any final words you'd like to leave us with?
No, I mean, this was delightful. It had a really nice rhythm. It was just delightful, and you know, Peter, you're doing such a fantastic job. There's a lot of excitement running around the Twitter sphere about how exciting this work you're doing is for everyone, and I really appreciate being invited to play.
In a moment, I'll do some closing thoughts, but yeah, I'm really, really glad that we had that disconnect technically beforehand, and I just totally handed the keys to you to do whatever you wanted here, because it was a really beautiful experience. So thank you so much, Bonita, for coming in today, and thank you for everyone to going on this wild ride with us for the last hour. So next two events at the STOA, if you just go to the stoa.ca, we have a Q&A on the liminal war, the rise of info militias with Jack Murphy. That's 4 p.m. Eastern time. And then at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we have Socratic speed dating with Raven Connolly. And that's really cool, like mixing speed dating technique with the Socratic inquiry. It's platonic, but you can fall in love with whoever you want to fall in love with. The Stoa does not police love. And lastly, the Stoa operates on a gift economy. I view this as a gift for all of us to freely use in this time of need. If you're inspired to give a gift to the Stoa, you can do so by going on the website and checking out the information on the gift economy at the bottom. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day. Thank you so much. I'll probably see you soon, maybe, if I'm lucky.